On the morning of September 1st, 2009, in a quiet part of rural Iowa, everything started like any other day. But in just a few minutes, that ordinary morning would completely fracture, leaving a family and an entire town trying to piece together a timeline of something truly unthinkable.
It's the same corner on County Road D. The same stop it makes every single weekday morning. You know the one.
The bus driver swings the door open and looks out, just expecting to see that same familiar face.
But there's no one there. The roadside is empty. Just a quiet patch of grass where a 9-year-old boy should have been standing.
And what starts as this little puzzle, a kid misses his bus, right? Well, that's about to escalate into a massive, full-blown search operation.
And right there, a totally normal Tuesday transforms into the start of a case that would grip the entire region.
So to really understand what went so terribly wrong, we have to start with the routine. Maple Ridge was the kind of town where you think that distance and quiet equal safety, where a kid's walk to the bus stop is just part of the predictable, steady rhythm of life.
And this is Jacob Keller. He was a quiet, curious kid, a typical fourth grader, you know? He loved drawing comics, was totally obsessed with baseball, and his whole world was built on these simple, repeatable patterns. And one of those patterns was his short, 3-minute walk down the road to his bus stop.
On this particular day, he was running just a little bit late. He rushed out the door at exactly 7:42 a.m. And that timestamp, which his mom confirmed, would become the absolute anchor point for the entire investigation. It was the last time anyone ever saw Jacob Keller.
For hours, the world just kept spinning as normal. But in the afternoon, the phone call came that every parent just dreads. The school called to say Jacob had been marked absent. He never even got on the bus that morning. And in that one moment, the world splits in two. There's the time before the phone call, and then there's the terrifying time after.
You see, the central mystery of this whole case wasn't just what happened, it was when. Investigators realized pretty quickly they weren't looking at a crime that unfolded over hours. The time frame was just impossibly small, almost hard to wrap your head around.
I mean, just look at how incredibly narrow this window was. Jacob leaves at 7:42. A neighbor spots him walking just 2 minutes later. By 7:47, the bus is there and he's gone. That's a confirmed 3-minute window. How does a child just vanish from a quiet country road in 3 minutes?
So the first big clue comes from the search dogs. They traced Jacob's scent perfectly, right from his front door, down the driveway, to the exact spot where he would have waited for the bus. And then, nothing. The trail didn't fade out, it just stopped, cold, as if he was just lifted into the air.
In law enforcement, there's a term for this. It's called a hard break. It means the scent trail ended so suddenly and completely that it really points to one main conclusion. Jacob had gotten into a vehicle. And that single clue changes everything. This isn't a search for a lost kid anymore. It's an investigation into a probable abduction.
And that leaves investigators with two competing and, frankly, equally chilling theories. Was this a terrifying random stranger abduction on an isolated road? Or was it something even harder to think about, an abduction by someone from inside that community, someone Jacob might have trusted enough to walk up to their car?
For days, it really felt like the investigation was just spinning its wheels. They had theories, sure, but no witnesses, no ransom notes, no solid evidence. And then, a grainy piece of security footage gives them their first real, tangible clue.
So you can see the dilemma investigators were facing, right? The rural road is perfect for a stranger. Not many witnesses, lots of quick escape routes. But on the other hand, there was no sign of a struggle. The scene was just quiet, which suggests that maybe Jacob went willingly with someone he knew, someone he trusted.
The breakthrough comes from a security camera on a grain silo about a mile away. It captured a dark pickup truck heading toward the bus stop at 7:45 a.m., right in the middle of that disappearance window. And then, crucially, it caught the same truck heading away just 4 minutes later. The footage was low res, but it was a start.
That lead eventually brings detectives to Daniel Harper, a local guy who happened to own a dark pickup. When they interview him again, a small but really significant crack appears in his story. He claimed he'd left for work around 7:30 a.m., but his employer's records showed his shift didn't even start until 9. It seems like a tiny detail, but in a case with almost no clues, a detail like that is everything.
Okay, this is where the patient, methodical work of forensics really starts to connect the dots.
Those inconsistencies in Harper's story, they gave investigators just what they needed to dig deeper, and what they found would slowly, piece by piece, just dismantle his entire alibi. His story just starts to unravel. He claimed he drove south that morning, but his cell phone data told a completely different story. His phone pinged a tower north of his house at 7:52 a.m., the opposite direction, just moments after Jacob vanished. The timeline in the geography just didn't match his story at all.
And then came the turning point. During a forensic analysis of his truck, investigators found something. A single, tiny, red synthetic fiber. It was consistent with the material of Jacob Keller's backpack. This was it. This was the first piece of physical evidence directly linking the victim to the suspect's vehicle.
So with that fiber evidence, police got a warrant to search Harper's property, and inside his garage they found something deeply, deeply disturbing. Beneath the section of the concrete floor, they discovered a recently dug empty cavity that had been lined with plastic. The space was prepared to hide something, and it suggested a level of forethought that was just bone-chilling.
With all this physical evidence piling up, the shaky alibi, the cell phone data, that single red fiber, and now this discovery in the garage, the investigation moved into its final phase, a direct confrontation with their only person of interest.
In the interrogation room, faced with the timeline of evidence they had against him, Daniel Harper's story finally just broke. After hours of questioning, he uttered the 5 words that confirmed every single fear that investigators had. The case was solved.
Harper confessed to picking Jacob up that morning. Based on his statement, authorities were finally able to locate Jacob's remains, bringing a tragic, awful end to the search. In the trial that followed, a jury found him guilty, and the timeline, which all started with the missed bus, was finally complete.
You know, in Maple Ridge, the school buses still run on County Road D. Life has a way of moving forward, and routines have a way of reestablishing themselves. But for a community that learned just how quickly safety can vanish in a few short minutes, that routine is now forever shadowed by the memory of the day it was broken.